Hi, I'm Cameron McKenzie at CameronMCNZ on Twitter, and I wanted to talk to you about multi-job workflows in GitHub Actions. In a previous tutorial, I showed you how to do a multi-step workflow, but there was only one job. In this particular workflow, we'll have two jobs, and I'll try and emphasize why you might have multiple jobs rather than just one in your production-ready, complicated, continuous integration, continuous delivery workflows with GitHub Actions. So here's a common work file that you might see when you're learning GitHub Actions. And this is actually from the previous tutorial that I did on multi-step GitHub Actions. And you can see here that in this workflow, we run on an Ubuntu image, and then we got a number of steps. We check the disk space, we check out some code, we set up the Java virtual machine, then we do a little Maven build of the project. And you can see there's multiple steps here. Now, there's also this thing called jobs, and you can have multiple jobs in your GitHub Actions workflow. Now, what's the distinction? Well, this particular workflow uses the ubuntu-latest container, and essentially we say it's an Ubuntu runner that's running this project. But what if there was a similar workflow that you had that needed to do something on Windows? So for example, Windows has a command, I don't know what the command is off by heart, but the command is, there it is, get execution policy. So that tells you the execution policy. So maybe you've got a job that requires you to check the execution policy before running a script, and that might be a requirement on Windows. But you don't need to do that on Ubuntu, right? So you have a requirement for doing a build that is slightly different on one operating system than it is on another. For that matter, you might want to check how your build runs on Windows, and then you might also want to check how it runs separately on Ubuntu. In that case, you would actually need separate jobs to run. And so what you can do is you can set up exactly that, multiple jobs. So I've got my standard GitHub Actions workflow file here. This is the same one that I used previously. So not too much has changed initially, right? We run it on a push to the main branch. Instead of a build job, notice I've got a build on Windows job. And this runs on the Windows latest container. And it's got a number of steps. Even on the Windows container, you're going to be running in PowerShell. So I can do the ls command, which is traditionally part of the Linux Ubuntu world. I can check out my code. I can do my Java. I can even build my project because Maven will be available on that Windows image. And then maybe for some reason I need to run a Windows only command. And so I run that right here, get execution policy. Now notice the other thing that I do here, step 6. I run the env command, and that will tell me where what all of the environment variables are, not only for GitHub, but also for this Windows environment. So this will be an interesting thing just to look at when we're done, and you'll actually see there's a significant difference between the two containers, obviously, because one is Ubuntu and one is Linux. And now I said, one is Ubuntu, and so that's this job right here, build on Ubuntu. You can't quite see it because I think the jobs entry up here is a little high, but you can see jobs, indentation, build on Windows, blah, 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 and then indentation, build on Ubuntu, and then all of the different steps for Ubuntu. And here I follow the basic steps, do the ls, check out, pretend that we actually run a Maven build. I do echo Maven build here because this project doesn't actually have any Java code, any Maven code in it. And the next tutorial I'll do that. I just wanted to kind of demonstrate this is probably what you would do here, just run that command. And then here I ask for the env, the environment variables that are available in these shell scripts in GitHub Actions on Ubuntu. Now I've actually run this already, so I'm going to click over on Actions and I'm going to see the multi-job workflow right here. And I'll take a look at it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to run it again. I'm going to go over here, go to the code, and just make a nonsensical change with GitHub Actions. Anyways, this will just cause the build to run. And actually, the reason I want to show you what happens when this runs, an interesting thing about all of the different jobs is that they run in parallel. So notice over here that under the Getting Started project, we've got the Build on Windows job running and the Build on Ubuntu job running, both at the same time. So these run in parallel. They don't run in sequence. Unlike steps. Steps run in sequence. the jobs can run in parallel. You can change that behavior, but that's the default. And so you can actually get a lot of work done if you kind of spin off a number of different containers here and do piecemeal pieces of work on it. But that is a sort of an interesting feature of the workflow when you have multiple jobs. Now I'm going to go over here. It looks like it's almost done. I think we might want to do some GitHub Action caching on that Windows build. It is a little slow. And now it indicates that it's completed. And I can click on each of these individual builds. Notice on this build on Windows, I can go down here. Where did we take a look at the execution policy? There we go. Hey, here's the execution policy, remote sign. So, I mean, not all that interesting, but noteworthy. And the environment variables are interesting. People always like looking at these. And you can see definitely, you know, we're on the C of C right here. We were on that C drive for all of the different folders where things like Gradle and Jenkins and, no, not Jenkins, where Gradle and Maven and Ant and all of those other tools are installed. You can see the Java home environment variable set there, M2 for Maven, even the Windows path. So that's all very interesting. Now, if I go over here on the build on Ubuntu, now we didn't have that environment policy there, but I did ask for the environment variables, and you can see right here, yeah, we've got a completely separate set of variables. I guess it's identical, except it's different, you could say. But yeah, now we don't have the C drive anymore. What we've got is Linux-based paths, right, for all of the different variables here. So people often find that interesting, just taking a look at that. Do we have a path variable there, right? You know, no, it's Ubuntu, so we don't have that path variable. But there you go. That should be somewhat interesting. So yeah, that's sort of the importance of jobs. Jobs gives you the ability to run builds on multiple environments with separate runners that can run in parallel when you run your workflow. All very, very helpful if you want to be able to test on multiple environments in parallel with different runners. And there you go. That's how multi-job workflows work with GitHub Actions. Now, if you enjoyed that tutorial, why don't you head over to theserverside.com. I'm the editor-in-chief over there. We got lots of great tutorials on GitHub Actions, Git, Java, Maven, DevOps tools, enterprise software development, you name it, we cover it over there. If you're interested in my personal antics, you can follow me on Twitter @CameronMCNZ and subscribe on YouTube.